Okay, I gotta be perfectly honest. I don't really know where to start here. I saw the movie about a day or two ago, and I knew I wanted to talk about it. It's probably the most important movie that I've been wanting to talk about like this year. And I knew I was gonna do a video on it. I saw it, and I had so many thoughts that I just do not know where to even start. Let's just kind of start from the basics. This is Superman, starring David Corenswet. This is the new rebooted Superman that is restarting the DCU by James Gunn. This is a new slate. This is a new start in terms of all of the upcoming DCU films coming out in the coming years. However, there is prior stuff from the original DCEU movies directed by James Gunn that seem to be transitioning into this new DCU lineup. This is the first saga called Gods and Monsters, similar to that of Phase 1 of Marvel. And the first movie, Superman, was released this week. And I want to talk about this film. But before I do that, I think it's really important that I acknowledge the prior Superman films, because not only are we going to be comparing the Superman lore to what we've seen before, but we're also going to be acknowledging the prior Superman, Henry Cavill. So let's dive into it. So just to acknowledge real quick, my favorite Superman is Christopher Reeves. I have fond memories of when my mom was taking me to a summer camp every weekday, or we were just going on vacation. We had the original Superman Christopher Reeves box set. I had bought it at Walmart at one point, and I actually watched those movies in the back of my mom's car. She had an Acura that had a DVD player, and it was just such a perfect way to watch those films because they are dated, and that stuff doesn't really bother me now as an adult, but as a kid growing up in 2006, it was just perfect at the time for me because I was an 11-year-old contained in this car, and I was kind of not necessarily forced to watch the films, but kind of was in terms of the effects and everything. The effects are incredibly dated, especially for Superman 4. By God, that's a terrible looking movie. But even with the worst Christopher Reeve Superman films, there's just something about that man where he brings such a charming atmosphere to this character. I love this scene where he is talking with Lois Lane outside of her apartment, and this man is just giddy to be talking to this woman. This is a man that is in love, and he just brings such a sense of humanization to this character that I absolutely love. Say what you will about the scene where he is rewinding time just by flying around the earth. That is an emotional scene. I watch that from time to time every year on YouTube, and I just get very teary just kind of seeing this man lose someone that he loves and using the best of his abilities to bring her back. It's such a weird and controversial scene in terms of comic book movies, but within the movie itself, it is so powerful. I love Christopher Reeves as Superman. Even in Superman 4, even though that movie has terrible effects, I love the fact that when Superman is in front of the United Nations and he is just saying I'm going to stop all nuclear threats out there, it is just so incredibly inspiring within the realm of the film. And it's almost tear-jerking. This man really knows how to portray this character. And I guess we can talk about Superman Returns with Brandon Routh. That movie is fine. I think there's a couple things that I wish the movie would have done a little bit differently. First off, Brandon Routh plays a really exceptional Superman. It really does feel like he is a reincarnation of that character, specifically the Christopher Reeve Superman. He does it exceptionally well. The problem with the movie is that it doesn't really go into what Superman has to deal with when being back on Earth after 5 years of searching for Krypton. He is able to get back to Earth. His mother is still alive. He's able to get his job back at the Daily Planet after 5 years, which is incredibly convenient. The only thing that Superman has to deal with emotionally is that Lois Lane is engaged, and she even has a child. And we learn more about that child that makes the plot a little bit more interesting, but the film decides not to delve into it any further. I think they were just super reliant on the fact that Superman Returns was probably getting a sequel, and it didn't. I don't know, I just really wish that Superman Returns would have added a little bit more emotional conflict within the character. And this is probably going to be the most controversial part of this video. I'm just warning everybody right now. We're talking about Henry Cavill's Man of Steel. Look, I love Henry Cavill. I think he's a really cool dude. We've seen a lot of stuff that he's done on YouTube regarding gaming content and being a part of The Witcher. I saw Argyle last year because I really wanted to be supportive of this actor because at that time he was dealing with a lot of shit. He wasn't gonna be Superman anymore. He wasn't gonna be The Witcher anymore. So I wanted to make sure that we were still showing him some love. It looks like he's gonna be having some good projects coming up in the near future. I think he's gonna be in a Warhammer movie or show. I think he's also going to be in a Voltron show. He's got some stuff lined up, so I'm really happy that Henry Cavill is still employed. When it comes to the DCEU Superman, I have no problem with Henry Cavill whatsoever. I have a problem with how the movie's structure and story portrays the character. Rarely do we get to see the character shine as the character. Man of Steel is really just showcasing the idea of Superman being on Earth and people recognizing that there is a human being like this for the first time ever. Throughout the DCEU Zack Snyder films, we're portrayed a character who is almost kind of feared by everybody. And it presents this real world aspect of Superman, which I can appreciate. But the problem is that we don't ever really get to see Superman earn the trust of the people. And what these films did is that it conjured these subgenres of superhero films and television shows where it showcased a reality of what if there was a Superman-like being and he was evil. We've seen it in Brightburn, we've seen it in The Boys, we've seen it in Invincible. As a society, we got really obsessed with the idea of what if Superman was evil? And it's not just these like outside properties, it was also DC as well when they did the Injustice video games and the Injustice animated movie. But in the retrospect of Henry Cavill's Superman, and the idea that this is supposed to be our generation's Superman, I don't think it's done really well. There's never a chance for Superman to defend himself or to showcase to humanity that he is a source of good. There's the one scene in Batman v Superman where Superman is finally in front of Congress and he gets to speak to the American people. And then all of a sudden there's a bomb that explodes and Superman is the only survivor. That would have been a perfect opportunity for Superman to unleash his humanity and showcase to the world that he is there for good. But instead, Zack Snyder decided to blow up the fucking Congress building. It's one of the many things that pissed me off. I'm not even mentioning the fact that in Batman v Superman, they kill off Superman, his second movie, and they kill him off. There is just not enough time to develop this character and showcase him as a human being. I really love the look and feel of the Zack Snyder films, but I don't think it did a really good service to Superman. It seemed that we were getting some optimism when Superman was at the end of Black Adam. We finally saw some fucking yellow on his symbol. In the last films, like it was so desaturated, and I guess they were going for like a gold effect on the logo. And it looked like they were finally going to be doing maybe a faithful interpretation of Superman with Henry Cavill. And then about a month after that, they just were like, no, we're not doing this. We're rebooting everything. James Gunn is taking over and we're just going to do another Superman film. And here we are now. And what do I think of this film? So in this interpretation of Superman, Superman has been around Metropolis for at least 3 years. Metahumans are a known thing, and this is a film that you just jump into. James Gunn has explained that this franchise is going to be a lot like Star Wars, and I can see why. There's some text in the beginning of this film that displays where we're at in this universe and who Superman is, and how he's known to the public and everything. It even explains how Superman stopped a conflict between two countries, and there's a lot of controversy with this. There is an amazing scene where Clark Kent agrees to be interviewed by Lois Lane as Superman, and they get into like the pros and cons of this situation. Lois Lane is like, hey, you probably caused a political outrage. And Superman was like, look, I was just trying to save people. And that's what I really love about this film is that Superman is just a guy. He's just a mellow guy that is just trying to do the best of his abilities to do the right thing. And I really like David Corenswet's Superman. I also love the fact that like, he makes an attempt not to curse a whole lot. Sometimes he's like, what the hey dude? Or, ah, dang it, I messed up again. That was just very cute. He also gets calls from his mom, who I get calls from my mom all the time, and I related to that a whole lot. It just showcased that this was an actual character with a certain background and upbringing, and I really, really loved that angle of the film. Superman also has his Fortress of Solitude out in the Arctic, where he has robots who are assisting him, and the best part of the film, which I know for a fact is why people are really loving this movie, is Krypto the super dog. Krypto is based on a dog that James Gunn adopted, where as soon as they adopted him, he caused nothing but havoc in their household, was tearing things apart, and that's what Krypto's based on. And you can clearly see that when he's jumping on Superman and other characters, but he has like this strength of a Kryptonian creature. It is hilarious, and I absolutely love seeing Krypto in this film. And just veering away from characters for a second, how is the tone of the film? This movie's weird, and I love it. James Gunn clearly took some inspiration from his prior films, Guardians of the Galaxy, and implemented this into his Superman film, where we just see this kind of I guess intergalactic is like the best way to describe it. There are characters who are completely zany and out of a comic book. There's interdimensional stuff that really showcases that like this is a superhero comic book film. There's a scene, I don't want to go into too much spoilers, but there is a scene that involves monkeys that I'm just like, okay, this film is very self-aware, and I just really love the tone that the film was trying to implement, and it really establishes what we're going to be seeing in other DC films in the coming years. And I really love this because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine a couple years ago, and this was right around the time when Superman was announced that he was going to be rebooted. And I talked about how like Man of Steel was just kind of too real for me, and there were some 9/11 aspects to it. And I talked to my friend and I mentioned like, hey, I kind of want to see a Superman film that is fantastical. It has like a sense of like magic to it. And this film is really filled with that. It is a colorful film. It is very saturated, and it just brings this sense of hopefulness. But it also still maintains this realism of like the film can get very political as well. There is a subplot in this film, without going into a whole lot of spoilers, where Superman is on the brink of getting canceled. Like I mentioned, he stops a war with 2 different countries, and there's a lot of people who are really like, hey, maybe you shouldn't have done that, Superman. And he's getting a lot of feedback from that, including from Lois Lane. The film acknowledges this idea of like, hey, you can try to do the right thing, but there's going to be like different sides of people who aren't necessarily going to agree with you. There's even talk about that on Fox News. I don't really want to get into a political aspect about this film, but like there are people that just don't understand basic human kindness and everything, and they lose the point of like who Superman is and what he tries to be. But what I really love about these themes and tones of the movie is that even though that there is all this backlash towards Superman, there is still a good amount of recognition where this is just a guy trying to do the best that he can, even with the abilities that he has. He can't make the world perfect, but he tries to nevertheless. And of course, let's talk about Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. This is a really good interpretation of Lex Luthor. I have had this mindset for so many years now in terms of how I think Lex Luthor should be. And there's been many different interpretations of the character that some people favor and some people don't like. In the modern comics, Lex Luthor is very much obsessed with defeating Superman because he is pro-human being. He is a man of intellect, and he is jealous and bitter against Superman because Superman gains the glory and fame for being just this alien superhero, and he didn't do anything to achieve it. He was just born that way. Whereas Lex Luthor used his intellect to build his company and his stature. There has always been from the comics this resentment from Lex Luthor that I've always wanted to see properly portrayed in a Superman film. And then there's also the Gene Hackman Lex Luthor, rest in peace, where the guy is just obsessed with property and real estate and taking over a section of the United States, which is incredibly zany, but it's like, oh, okay, this is like the film just being fun, and it's a comic book film. And I know that there are some people who love Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor. I didn't. I liked how it was similar to that of the comics, where it is just a guy who hates God, and Superman is the closest interpretation of God, but he's just way too zany. It was almost as if like Zack Snyder wanted to make a Joker-like character, and that's how Jesse Eisenberg came across as like, let me put a Jolly Rancher in your mouth. Nicholas Hoult's character is the best of both worlds. He is incredibly obsessed with Superman to the point where it's just diabolical and so sinister what he does to this man, just ruining his career and doing terrible things in front of him. It kind of reminded me of Cartman from South Park a little bit. There is just so much ridiculous stuff that this man does just because he hates Superman, and I absolutely loved it. To describe another tone for this film, it almost feels a little bit like the Spider-Man MCU films from Tom Holland in terms of characters. This film recognizes that Superman has been around for at least 3 years. He's been in Metropolis for a while now, and there's already DC characters that are already in this city. We see Green Lantern, we see Hawkgirl, we see Mr. Terrific, which, by the way, is at least my third favorite character. Mr. Terrific was amazing. He's played by the actor who played Darwin in X-Men First Class. This man finally got the respect that he deserved because that character dies in X-Men First Class. He was just such a great character, And now he's back as one of the most influential DC characters. I loved him. I loved his no shit taking attitude. Like, I thought it was great. But what I'm getting at here is that the film is a little bit like the Tom Holland Spider-Man films, where those Spider-Man films acknowledge that, okay, Spider-Man is finally back in the MCU. Let's have him have a character to interact with each movie, like Iron Man or Nick Fury or Doctor Strange. The Punisher is even going to be in the next Spider-Man film. That's crazy. And at some points, that gets kind of repetitive because it kind of feels like they're just doing that for the sake of doing that. Where in this film, it's kind of warranted because it kind of showcases the effect that Superman has on all these different characters and how he operates a little bit differently, where Guy Gardner's Green Lantern wants to kill a kaiju monster, but Superman's like, no, I didn't want to kill it. I wanted to like study it and see like where it came from. So it's really nice to have these other superheroes in the film just to kind of showcase the differences between them and Superman, who's a little bit sweeter to things like that. In terms of things that I would say, it's really hard to state that this is a con, because it actually is kind of a pro for like what the movie is trying to convey in its ending and stuff. So there is some retconning to the character's upbringing. As you guys know, Superman is from Krypton. He was sent to Earth as a baby from his Kryptonian parents, one of them being Jor-El, because they wanted to save their child. In this film, without going into spoilers, there is some stuff that is changed, and it's very similar to that of like The Batman with Robert Pattinson, where the film showcases to its audience that like, we don't have all the information, and that these characters might not have been like the most perfect people. And I think that's gonna be something, if you are a comic book fan, that might grind your gears a little bit. There's gonna be people who want all of their comic book superhero movie adaptations to be perfect. And that's gonna be something where people are gonna recognize, okay, this is different. But within the realm of the film, it's so beautiful, the message that this film is trying to convey. I got really teary, specifically with the ending shot. There is a song that is played that I've been listening to on repeat because it's just so beautifully matched with what is being conveyed at the ending of the film. I really like this film. If you're a fan of All-Star Superman, I think you're really gonna like this film. There's a lot of weird imagery, there's a lot of color to the film, and it really showcases that this is a character that's going to progress later on in future films with other characters like him. And I love the amount of room that the film leaves in terms of like who Superman might meet in the future and the family that he might start. I don't know, I just really like how this film is starting something new within the DC franchise. Am I gonna miss Henry Cavill as Superman? Yes, I think that was kind of a missed opportunity. I really wanted to see how that man could have portrayed this iconic character, but unfortunately the people in charge just were not doing anything with his character. Henry Cavill kind of became a side character within a universe that he started. And that is such a shame because I think that man deserves so much more respect, but this is where we're at now. This is where we're at in terms of a Superman adaptation, and I think it's a really good start. I think it really focuses on what makes the character important. The humanity is there, the kindness is there, and I want to see more. So yeah, guys, that was my review of Superman. Let me know in the comments down below what you've thought of the movie. If you've seen it yet, like this video, share it, and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet for more movie reviews, gaming content, and so on. Thank you guys so much. I'm Corbin Stuckey, and thank you for watching.